We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. I'm still down in Georgia, having a hell of a time, by the way. We went to Tybee Island, which place I love. It's a wonderful beach community, and there's a lot of great restaurants. The beach is beautiful. The pier is kind of cool too. We went and saw it all. We always go to Tybee Island when we come down to Georgia, and clearly we come down a lot. Somebody said to me, on TikTok, "You're down in Georgia again?" Yeah, well, we have a place down here and we love Savannah, Georgia, and we come down here a lot. If we can get here every month, we'll do it. If we can't, we'll see. But we will be here a lot. And I just got to give you a tip if you come to Savannah. As I've said, there's a lot of places, great places to eat. And since my wife and I are old, our hobby is going out to dinner. You can probably see I don't miss a lot of meals. But anyway, we went to a place and I actually got tipped off to it on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen these guys. They're two British guys who go out and try American food. And they say whether they like it or they didn't like it. Well, they went to one down here in Savannah, and it's a restaurant called Sweet Potatoes. And it looked like they love this shit. So I said, well, fuck, I'm in Savannah. It's maybe 4 miles away from where I'm at in my condo. So we decided to try it out last night, and it was fucking awesome. They claim to have um, the best banana pudding on earth. I had the banana pudding, and I can verify, as far as what I've tasted in the past, it is the best on earth. It's pretty fucking amazing. Fried chicken is great. My wife had a pecan encrusted chicken breast. It was a great time. So my wife and I are filling our days with some relax and what am I trying to say? A lot of relaxation and going out to dinner and seeing the sights. I told you about what we saw the day before. That was my wife's choice, and this was my choice: Tybee Island and Sweet Potatoes. If you're down in Savannah, you got to try it. It's fucking awesome. Anyway, we are going to take you through another Rational Boomer podcast, as we always do. And wow, it's been crazy lately as far as emails. I get a ton of emails. As I've told you before, I'm dealing with a little different equipment than I normally do at home. So sometimes it makes things a little more clumsy. So just bear with me if I do something that's more clumsy than you're used to. But we'll get through this and we'll talk about it. And actually, a lot of shit happened yesterday, a lot of interesting stuff. None of it good for Republicans. The Republicans seem to be on a losing streak for the last 2.5 years. No matter what they do, they fucking fail. And I think that's the way it's going to go for the next 13, 14 months leading up to an election. It's not going to go well. They've got some issues that they're dealing with now. They're talking about starting the investigation or the inquiry for an impeachment against Joe Biden. They said they're starting September 28th, which I find really strange because by October 1, they need to come to some answers as far as the budget and appropriations and that sort of thing. Otherwise, the country will close down. Now, they tried to pass a defense bill yesterday, which should be the easiest thing in the world to pass. That's one thing Democrats and Republicans always agree on, the defense funding. And it's always billions and billions of dollars more each year. They couldn't even get that fucking thing passed. So how are they going to pass an impeachment? Then I heard something about Matt Gaetz talking about ramping things up to try to vacate Kevin McCarthy from his job as Speaker of the House. That's not going well either because they don't have enough votes for that either. In fact, I read a story. I didn't get a chance to look at it in depth, but somebody in the House of Representatives was in the bathroom, and in the garbage was a resolution by Matt Gaetz to vacate Kevin McCarthy. Give you an idea where that is in as far as status about that happening. But this is all stuff I told you. These are bullies doing what bullies do. They spew shit, trying to scare people, hoping against hope that these people will fold up and die. But if they don't, they've got really nothing to back them up. So they're inevitably going to lose. All right, let's get to some emails here. Says, hey, Boomer, Vinny again. I was listening to your podcast today and I had a thought regarding the Republicans' chances in 2024. I can't help wonder why they aren't trying to make their party more palatable to the younger generations, from what I understand. And he sent me a link. He said around 5,000 boomers die every day, which is a little disconcerting to me because I'm a boomer. Now there's 70 million of them, so it may be a while before it gets to me, but I'm a boomer nonetheless. And at the same time, he says, while Gen Z is coming of voting age around 7,000 every day. Why don't Republicans try to understand what the younger voting generations want and appeal to, that rather than burning the entire place down? They have to know that their base voters are dying at a huge rate, only to be replaced by voters who hate everything they stand for. Well, this is right. I mean, this is something they should have recognized 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But because Donald Trump is involved in this stuff, and because they're obliged to Donald Trump for whatever reason, out of fear, out of stupidity, whatever, these people will double down and double down. It is going to take a blue wave in 2024 for them to stand back and say, well, holy fuck, something's wrong. It seems ridiculous. You and I can see this. And I don't think it's that they don't see it. It's just that they don't have the courage to do what they need to do. But let's be honest. If they have a blue wave in 2024, and they realize that they've been wrong all along, which they are, if they decide to reimagine themselves or rehabilitate themselves, it's not going to happen overnight. They've got a lot of people in the House and a lot of people in the Senate that are fucking dinosaurs, that are still a problem, that are still Trump-o-fucks, that are still, interested in fascism. So it's not like they can turn it around on a dime. They can't. It's going to take some time. And this is good news for the Democrats. If the Democrats can win in a walk in 2024, as long as the Democrats do what they say they're going to do and accomplish some things, that's just going to embolden those people that are their base. I mean, why would you vote against a group of people that has done great things for you, like better health care, like student loan forgiveness, like cheaper pharmaceuticals? Why wouldn't you stick with them? So while the Republicans are trying to redeem themselves, the Democrats will then bring more people into the fold because of all the things they're doing. Now, that's the way it should go if common sense was being used. But again, we're talking about Washington, D.C. We're talking about politicians, and they don't always know what the fuck they're doing on either side of the aisle. Now, Vinny goes on to say, as a Utah native born and raised, I never understood why the dominant religion in the state isn't trying to appeal to today's younger generation with policy and practice. If you want to keep money flowing, you need to make sure the young people are willing to go along with your bullshit. Otherwise, the church corporation will cease to exist. Nobody wakes up in the morning and decides to be a Mormon. In the same way, nobody wakes up in the morning and decides to be a Republican. These are ideals and principles that have to be curated, indoctrinated. And you're absolutely right. You have to grow up in whatever religion you're in. You have to be taught that religion from the moment you're born. Same with the Republicans. And this is one of the problems we have with Republicans. There are people that still vote against their best interests. They vote Republicans because dad voted Republican, grandpa voted Republican, great grandpa voted Republican. They're not voting for the people. They're voting for the party. But unfortunately, the party that grandpa and great grandpa voted for doesn't exist anymore. This is a far different party. And but they aren't smart enough to see the difference, and they aren't courageous enough to buck the system and go against their families. He goes on to say, I can't understand why the party would be short-sighted as to not even attempt to secure money in perpetuity from anyone in their orbits. Here's the thing. When we're talking about Republicans and we're talking about religion, especially Mormonism, they have had these beliefs and ideologies for decades. And unfortunately, the younger people think just the opposite. So instead of trying to schmooze their way through and try to, gain the support of these young people, they're trying to buck the system. I mean, they're like a rat caught in a corner. They're fighting with everything they've got. They know they're in trouble. They know they probably can't win, but they're hoping against hope by doing the draconian things that they're doing, that they can somehow save it, pull it out of the ashes, if you will. And unfortunately, you and I know that that's not going to work, but try to convince them. It's not that easy. Vinny goes on to say Gen Z is tenacious. They can see how their parents and grandparents fucked up this country with conservative values and policies, and they don't want anything to do with it. They want free and fair elections. They want abortion rights. They want universal health care. They want LGBTQIA rights without exception. They want to attend college without having a lifetime of crippling student debt. They want to have the retirement. They want reasonable housing costs. They want legal cannabis. They want action on climate change. They want action on prescription drugs. They want reasonable gun control. Republicans stand fervently proud opposing all of these ideas. And you're absolutely right. For decades, they've convinced us that giving us those things is not good, that this country simply cannot afford it, which is absolute bullshit. This is all a ploy to give rich people more money and keep the middle class kind of slaves to debt, whether it be student loans or car loans or home loans or medical care. It doesn't matter. I mean, this has been the whole point of what they've done. They want the power, and money is power. So they get all the money and you get to do all the hard work and get no money in return. That's just the fucking way it is. And here's where the problem is for Republicans and religious organizations. Young people ain't buying that shit. I've always said to Republicans, what is so wrong with giving back to the middle class? What's so wrong about that? Well, we can't afford it. Well, of course we can afford it. You're sending tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to the Defense Department, which we don't need to do. You're giving $2 trillion tax cuts to the rich, but you tell us you can't give us decent health care. There's obviously more to this than what we can afford. We can afford it. We just choose not to give it to the people who really support this country, the backbone of this country. I've said this before, and I'm a redundant motherfucker, so I'll say it again. If you're an investor and you have a portfolio and you want to decide where you want to put your new money, do you invest in something that gives you no return, as is the case with the wealthy and corporations who don't pay taxes? Or do you put it into the group or the section that generates the most money for you? I mean, wouldn't you want the middle class to flourish, since the middle class is what's keeping everything afloat? I've said this before too. Politicians and rich people are like the dog with endless amounts of dog food. You keep pouring dog food in the plate, he'll eat it till he explodes. Same for the wealthy people. What happens when the middle class crashes? They've got nobody left to grift. They've got nobody making the money for them. And they're starting to see that a little bit now in terms of having trouble finding employees. And now we have all these strikes and these unionized situations. I really think we're kind of at a tipping point. If corporate America is going to survive, they're going to have to start treating people that work for them better. And all these strikes and all this pressure and the possibility of Democrats being in control in 2024. They're going to have to make some changes or they're going to be in trouble. Now, Vinny goes on to say Republicans have no answers or solutions or even a simple acknowledgement of the problem. No, in fact, they don't say anything about the problem. As far as they're concerned, or as far as they say, there is no problem. Can they really be this unaware of the surroundings? Can they not read the room? If they can't figure out this simple problem, they are DOA. Sorry for the long email. I'm out of town for work for the rest of the week, and maybe we can get together for a podcast next week sometime. I'll keep you updated. Absolutely, Vinny. I'd love to have you on the show, as I would any listeners. But next week sounds good. Do they not understand it? Of course they understand it. Like I say, they're just in desperation mode. They know they're in trouble. They know they probably can't win. So they're fighting and scratching to try to save their lives. I have to believe they know they won't be able to do it. But instead of giving in and trying to adjust with the times, they're going to fight it tooth and nail, and they're going to lose. Like I said, we're at kind of a tipping point or a pivotal time in this country. The young people are going to take control. Everything that is corrupt and criminal with politics has been exposed, and now they have to answer for it. And I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans alike. Because make no mistake, if the Democrats regain the control in the House and the Senate and in the White House, there's still going to be a lot of pressure on these motherfuckers because the Democrats have done some fucked up shit too. We can go into that and talk hours about that. They're not as bad as the Republicans. They're not a danger to our democracy. So we got that going for us. So we've got to extinguish the Republicans. And once that's done, we've got to put pressure on our politicians to do what they were put there to do. And that is to serve us and to make sure this country flourishes. And the only way to do that is keep the middle class alive, happy, and healthy. Next one says, hi, Boomer. How come nobody hasn't yelled for her to step down, or con artist Santos, who is under indictment, but everybody yelled when Al Franken, hold on a second here. Al Franken was captured on a photo making that crazy ass gesture, which cost his political career. Unfortunately, even members of his own party criticize him and recommend him to step down. These two ass clowns roll around like nothing has just happened. American politicians, especially the Republicans, have no fucking integrity whatsoever. And that makes us look like idiots around the world. What's your outtake? Actually, what's my take? Jose V. Well, you have to understand what happened to Al Franken came at a very inopportune time for him. If anybody in politics got screwed, it's Al Franken. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do it. We didn't do anything wrong. I don't know. There was no investigation. He just did the right thing and he resigned. And as you stated, the Democrats were behind it too, which those people should be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely ashamed of themselves. Now, he was replaced, and this is one of my senators in the state of Minnesota. He was replaced by another woman, Tina. I can't remember her last name, but she was the lieutenant governor. And she's doing a fine job. I have no problem with that. But in as far as Republicans like Santos or Lauren Boebert, why haven't they resigned? Because no one's pressuring them to resign. I mean, even Richard Nixon, when he resigned, it was because the Republicans were going into his office and saying, you need to resign because you're going to get impeached and you're going to get convicted. So he took the cowardly way out and he resigned. But see, the Republicans are so much about obstructionism and they're criminal and corrupt in their own right. So there is no pressure from the Republicans to do this. Kevin McCarthy doesn't want either of these two clowns to go because his margin in the House is already too small. All that's going to do is weaken him even more. And frankly, I don't understand how that happens because Kevin McCarthy is the weakest motherfucker I've ever seen. and the Republican Party is weak. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. But that's why times are different. Now, when Al Franken went through his situation, that's when Me Too hit the scene. I mean, it was hot in everybody's minds. People were reacting to Me Too, as they should. I mean, the whole fucking thing should have been addressed, and it was. And Al Franken fell victim to it. And I'm not saying there weren't Al Franken victims. I'm not saying Al Franken is clean, but when you put him up against Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, George Santos, he's a fucking angel. And there aren't many angels in politics these days. So it's because the Republicans have held enough power to hold on to them. They haven't been forced out. People will say, why won't the Democrats force them out? Well, the Democrats don't have the majority in the House. They can't make them do shit. It's the Republicans that have to do that. And the Republicans, as we know, are fucking despicable. All right. Next one comes from Don. He says, how is Steve Bannon avoiding jail time? If Trump is elected again, my wife and I are moving out of the country. I'm ashamed to be a sixth-generation Texan with Paxton being acquitted. But it's not a huge surprise since he gave millions to Dan Patrick. They're so corrupt. Cheers, Don. Well, Steve Bannon is avoiding jail time for the moment because he's out on bail awaiting an appeal. So, he did what all Republicans do when he gets convicted and sentenced. He filed an appeal to delay the inevitable. Don't worry about Steve Bannon. He's not going to win any appeals, and he will go to jail. It's not for a long time. It's like 4 months. But then you have to remember that Steve Bannon may fall into the superseding indictments from Jack Smith regarding January 6th because he was seriously involved. I think Jack Smith has the right idea. He knows that the only defendant that he has to worry about that is time sensitive is Donald Trump. So what they're focusing on Donald Trump now. The superseding indictments will come, and hopefully that will be members of Congress, Ginny Thomas, Roger Stone, and the likes of Steve Bannon. We don't know yet. They should be coming at some point soon, I would think. They don't have to wait to indict them until after Donald Trump is convicted, but they wanted to separate them out so there was no confusion or no potential delays when they were going after Donald Trump. Let's be honest, when we're talking about members of Congress, we're talking about Steve Bannon or Ginny Thomas. This could easily go well past the election in 2024, but it doesn't fucking matter. First of all, the Republicans aren't going to win, so nobody's getting pardoned. Secondly, whether Ginny Thomas goes to jail tomorrow or 2 years from now, tomorrow, doesn't really fucking matter. We got to cut the head off the snake, that being Donald Trump, and that's what he's doing at this point. All right, the next one. Hi, Boomer. You had a sad but true quote the other day. Apparently, I said he ruined the White House and future trust in presidents. Wow, that's pretty good. Did I say that? Well, it's true. He did. I mean, just by virtue of the things that Donald Trump did, we'll look sideways at any president with anything they do. They've taken away some innocence in this country. And maybe it's about time because, as I've said, a lot of the crimes and corruption we're hearing about now have been going on for decades. They just hadn't seen the light of day. So if there is something we can thank Donald Trump for, is being stupid enough to bring all this to the surface so we understand what truly is going on in our politics. He goes on to say, so true, and it's such a long list of things he's ruined. Families, small towns, the flag, relationships, our government's functioning libraries. The list is endless. 5 years ago this week, he laughed at the United Nations. It's easy to forget the daily spectacle when he was in office. Yeah, because every day there was a different scandal. Whatever was the most egregious thing he's ever done, he topped it the next day. They go on to say, I remember him turning the Easter event into a shit show one year and thinking this motherfucker can't get through an Easter egg hunt for Christ's sake. Somebody should punish or publish TikTok content around this day in Trump history and remind everyone painfully of the daily horror of this malignant fuck while he was in office. Dude, I'm kind of doing that. You're kind of doing that. We're just doing all we can to keep it in the forefront, all his egregious bullshit. Now, he goes on to say, on an unrelated topic, I keep waiting for my Governor Youngkin to emerge as a possible sane alternative. He looks good in a fleece vest, walked in a mushy middle lane, re-Trump, and is an expert of taking money from many to give to a few, mostly himself. Perfect Republican candidate. Best garage door George, or Jeff, George. Garage door Jeff. P.S. Your idea of a reality show in the villages is pure gold. I'm surprised nobody's doing that. I'm a little surprised too. I mean, if we can have the Real Housewives or whatever, we certainly could have a show in the villages, and these fucking clowns would be perfect for the show. I get a kick out of the Real Housewives. My wife will watch them from time to time. And all I can say is, first of all, these aren't Real Housewives. Second of all, they're fucking pigs. They sit here, and the funniest thing about these fucking idiots, they'll go on a trip and nobody will get along, of course. So they get back from the trip and everybody's upset. So what do? They plan another fucking trip. It's all play for the cameras. It's all fake and it's just stupid, and I get tired of it. PSS, I'd say weave your personal stories into your podcast. Keep them in the 5 to 7 minute range. And I, for one, would love to hear them. Listen to this. Jeff is producing my show now. No, I talked about this. Somebody suggested I do some shows with some of the personal stories, because I've got a lot of weird stories because I've done weird things in my life. Worked in the music business, worked in the radio business. I've got some interesting stories, and maybe I'll do that, Jeff. That may be a good idea. Maybe, I'm always thinking about what do I talk about before I get into the show. I might talk about my granddaughter a little bit, talk about where I went to eat yesterday, like anybody gives a fuck. But maybe that'd be a good time to tell some quick stories leading into the show. That way it doesn't muddle up the show, as it were. Thank you for the suggestion, Jeff. I appreciate it. All right, let's go on. Hey, Boomer, great podcast today. Just a thought, Israel leadership is concerning to me, though I would like to hear what you think. The Minister of Finance is a self-proclaimed fascist and homophobic. There was a spy program that was created that Israel is selling called Pegasus. I believe that many countries have purchased. Many journalists have died. The points of this program is Benjamin Netanyahu, a loose cannon. Hope not. I watch Frontline program on PBS. It is scary as hell. Not down your normal line, but I'd want to research what your thoughts are. Last thing we need is more fascists on the planet. Thanks, Darren. Thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't really get into that too much. And it's not that I'm not interested or I think it's unimportant. That's not the case. The reason I don't get into it is because I feel like we've got to clean up our own backyard before we start worrying about other countries. Save for Ukraine. We're helping them out with money and with weapons. And I think we have to do that in order to shut down Russia, because they will keep going if they get into the Ukraine. But other than that, Israel's such a touchy thing. If you say anything negative about Israel, you're an anti-Semite. And here's the thing. I worry about Israel a little bit because they're suffering with the same things we're suffering through: fucking corruption and criminality and aggressiveness. Um, I don't know enough about Israel to really talk about them, and I could look into it and learn more about it. Maybe I will. Maybe I should. But I really believe what we've got going on now here in this country is so much shit. I want people to know what's going on, what's happening, what could happen, what won't happen before I can even get to outside countries. I don't even talk about the Ukraine war that much because what we've got going on in this country right now is unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented. And if we don't focus on it and get it taken care of, we'll never get anything fucking done in this country. We're at a point right now where we have to save this country. And I think that's where we need to focus. I'm not talking about being an isolationist and not caring about other countries. But here's something that I try to teach my kids, and I don't know that they've gotten it. I take a weird um, look at things. If you're at home, at work, and you've got multiple problems, okay? If you look at all the multiple problems and try to fix them all at once, it's going to be overwhelming and you're going to get nothing accomplished. What you really have to do is have the discipline to deal with the problems one at a time. There's a benefit to doing that. You're more than likely going to um, get all your problems done ultimately. Every time you get one problem done and set aside, you build a little confidence to make it easier on the next one. Um, the unfortunate thing is when there are problems out there, what people do is they panic and they start fumbling around, making mistakes because they're trying to fix everything at once. And I think that's could be a problem for us in this country if we don't focus on the huge problems we have here. And people will say, well, you can't just forget about other people. It's kind of like being on a plane. You know, when you're sitting on the plane and they start giving you the spiel about about the oxygen masks, they say if you have a child, make sure you put it on you first and then the child. Why do they tell you that? Because if you pass out, nobody's helping the child. It's better to take care of yourself first so you can be there to help the child. And the same thing goes for other countries. We got to fix ourselves before we can help anybody else. At this point, we're not in a position to help many people other than maybe Ukraine because we got so many problems ourselves. We need to focus and prioritize what's going on in this country, take care of those things, get them done, and move on to the next one. We've got to fix ourselves. We can't be jumping around doing a bunch of things at once because what we found out about this government is that they're not good at multitasking. We need to take care of certain things and get them done and then move on to the next thing. All right, we are going to take a quick break and we will be right back. All right, we've got two more emails, and these are both from Old Soul, so they should be good ones. She says, hey, Boomer, today in a podcast interview, Margie Taylor Greene was asked why vote on impeachment if they don't have the vote. She said, quote, the reason why I want a list of names is because I want to know where we're going to win the White House in 2024. And when that time comes around, I want to know exactly who we need to fire and who we need to prosecute when we control the Department of Justice. So I want to give everyone a reason, not just to impeach Joe Biden. It's more than impeaching Joe Biden. And we know it won't go anywhere in the Senate. It's about uncovering the vast conspiracy that covered up all so they can control Washington and control the country. Yeah, that sounds like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Um, the thing about it is that that sounds all too so much like Republicans. They're all about performance. They want to expose people so they can fire them. Here's the thing, Marjorie, you're not going to win in 2024. You're just not going to win. So you're just fucking spinning your wheels at this point. So I want to give everyone a reason, not just to impeach Joe Biden. It's more than impeaching Joe Biden. We know it won't go anywhere. It's about uncovering the vast conspiracy that covered it up so they can control Washington, end quote. Now, MAGA isn't hiding the fact that they want to not only target Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and the Biden family. I'm sure if you saw Hunter Biden and the Biden family, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but they are now requesting records for Biden family members. To be exact, 9 Biden family members, including Biden's brother James. They plan on attacking the family and labeling them a crime family during their September 28th impeachment hearing next week. Now, remember the 2022, they stole Ashley Biden's diary. I didn't think they could stoop any lower than that, but if Republicans aren't good at anything else, they are masters of lowering the bar. Anyway, I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's a method to their madness. They are targeting all our institutions, and any Republican who doesn't fall in line to do exactly what T-Rump wants them to do, they know all this Biden crime family stuff is nonsense, but they are using it as a way to weed out those not loyal to Trump. Well, good luck with that. When you find out who's not loyal to Trump, you'll realize you have no power in the Republican caucus. So, yeah, you're going to find out, and when you do find out, you're going to be terribly disappointed. Old Soul goes on to say they need this is a page straight out of the Project 2025 playbook. They need to see who isn't loyal and remove them. It's so vile, they don't care how many Americans are affected by this. We are simply collateral damage, a means to an end, and they need to be stopped before they have a chance to take that vote. The mainstream media is actually doing the right thing by accurately reporting it's the House GOP causing the chaos, and it will be on their shoulders if we have a shutdown. They're also reporting Kevin has no control over the House, and that's exactly right. Kevin's got a shit show going, and it's his show, so he doesn't look very good at this point. The pressure from the reporting has other Republicans openly saying the Freedom Caucus is out of control and are putting the blame squarely on them and McCarthy. My question is, do you think this level of pressure will force McCarthy's hand to reach across the aisle for Democrats to bail his butt out again, like with the debt ceiling? Yeah, he might do that. In fact, it may be his only choice. It's a matter of will the Democrats bail him out? Or will we go to a shutdown? Well, anybody of a reasonable mind in the Republican Party does not want the shutdown because Republicans will get the blame for it. You were talking about investigating the Biden family. I heard an interesting story about that. Yeah, they might be sending subpoenas and investigating and causing 9 Biden family members to testify. But you know who they're not sending a subpoena to? Joe Biden. And James Comer was asked, why is that? And James, in his inimitable way, said, well, we don't have any evidence that he's tied to it. This is basically like a mob thing. They know they have nothing on Joe Biden, yet they're going to try to stain him or smear him. But it's almost like a mob thing. If you can't get the guy, go after the family. That's what they're doing. And it's going to be no avail because they don't have any evidence. What's going to happen on September 28th, they can try to do all this stuff, but ultimately what's going to happen is they're going to be embarrassed. How do I know this? Because Hakeem Jeffrey, Jamie Rashkin, Katie Porter, and all these people are there. And you don't think that they've considered what's going to happen here? By the end of September, the Republicans will be looking pretty foolish, not only because this hearing or this investigation is going to go to shit, probably before it even gets started, but because they are going to have to scramble to keep the country open. And this is where the MAGA group is in trouble. They think they have power. And up till recently, the Republicans have kind of been in lockstep with them. But the time has come where they just can't do it anymore without hurting themselves. And so something's going to have to give. We know Kevin McCarthy isn't afraid of the motion to vacate, get him out of the speakership. We know that he told Matt Gaetz basically to fuck off. So I don't think Kevin is worried about that because, again, they put it to a vote. No, there isn't the votes for it, and it will just expose the MAGA group for the weak bitches they are. See, you're talking about them exposing the people that aren't loyal to Trump, right? Like that's a bad thing. I think at this point, a lot of people will be wanting to jump on that fucking bandwagon because Donald Trump is going down and he looks worse every day. What this is really going to do is it's going to expose MAGA and ultimately destroy MAGA. It's not going to destroy our country. It's probably going to be the best thing for our country. So I think the level of pressure on McCarthy is already on him. He doesn't know what to fucking do. He's got everybody out of control, and I don't think he has much choice but to try to beg Democrats for fucking help. And when he begs Democrats for help, that's going to cost him. That's going to cost him in the appropriations and the budgets. I mean, he already had a deal with Joe Biden. He's trying to go back on that deal. So once Kevin McCarthy is in desperation mode, Biden's just going to say, well, we could maybe help you, but you better stick to your fucking deal. And then he'll know that MAGA will be pissed off at him, but he knows that at that point, the Democrats will help bail him out and that MAGA doesn't have the power to actually get him to be vacated. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. You got to look at, they have a plan, but tell me what plan has worked for them recently? None of them. None of them have worked. And this is a desperation attempt to try to pull something out of their ass, and it ain't going to be enough. It's just not going to be enough. She goes on to say, why are Kevin McCarthy and the less crazy Republicans refusing to work with Democrats? If they don't, they'll pay for it in 2024. Why indeed? Well, for whatever reason, they feel obliged to MAGA. They're afraid of MAGA. But that's coming to an end here pretty quick because they're going to make MAGA. They have no choice. They're going to make MAGA to shit or get off the pot. And what's ultimately going to happen, they're just going to shit themselves because they got nothing. They've got no power. I think this is all a good thing. When this comes to a head at the end of September, going into October 1st with the possible shutdown and this investigation, none of this is going to go well for the Republicans. It is going to be a shit show for them. They are going to be embarrassed, and they won't even be able to agree with one another. I mean, MAGA talks like they have all this power. Well, your whole Republican caucus can't even fucking agree on a defense bill. You think you're going to agree on an impeachment or any of these bills that are going to keep the country open? What's going to happen is the Democrats will say, we want this, we want this. We'll take our 213 votes and vote for it. And hopefully you can come up with 5 votes to make it 218 and we can get this fucking thing done. That's really all that can happen because the Republicans do not want to shut down the government. MAGA does, but we're talking 35 people out of 218. You don't think they can get 5 Republicans to say these fuckers are crazy? But the reason they play this game up to this point is what I've said before. They know what's coming, but they're flailing and they're grasping at straws just to try to stay alive. And I think now they're realizing that there's nothing they can do. She goes on to say, do you think you'll be able to reach across the aisle? I think there's no question about it. Last question. What do you think about the polls saying House is a toss-up in 2024? The Senate will flip. I'd like to think Tuberville alone will cost them in the Senate. But at the same time, Schumer isn't using his power to put an end to what Tuberville is doing. Mainly, why is Tuberville still on the committees? People I've spoken to are upset about that and feel Schumer is as much to blame as Tuberville. Thanks, Boomer. Thanks, Boomer. She's talking to me. It was old soul. It's a good question about Schumer. Why hasn't he done anything? I don't honestly know what he can do, but he should be doing something. As far as the polls, come on, old soul. You and I know fucking better than that. Those polls are bullshit. You have to understand. We trusted the polls in 2016 when they said Hillary Clinton was going to win in a walk. We trusted the polls when they said there was going to be a red wave in 2022. Do you really trust the polls? I don't have to take a poll. And granted, I could be wrong, but I'm looking at logic and common sense here. I'm looking at the facts. There's no way the Republicans win the House. No way they win the Senate. And there's certainly no way that Joe Biden's going to lose to any fucking Republican. So I wouldn't worry about that. See, this is what upsets me about the media. They're constantly putting these things out there. An old soul and all you people. Listen to me very carefully. Just because Republicans say it, just because Donald Trump says it, that doesn't mean it's true. In fact, odds are it's a flat out fucking lie. It's a bullshit to try to cause some chaos and concern amongst the Democratic Party. Do not listen to that shit. I told you to not listen to it in 2022, but a lot of people worried for a long time. They were relieved when it didn't happen. But I'm just telling you this, you waste a lot of time worrying about things that are never going to happen. You might be relieved when you find out it doesn't happen, but think of all the time you waste, the heartache that you went through worrying about something you didn't need to worry about. No way Republicans win the House. I don't see any way they can flip the Senate, and there's no way anybody's going to beat Joe Biden. I'm just saying. As I say, I could be wrong, and if I am, I'll acknowledge it. But the facts just don't bear it out. It just doesn't. It's just all bullshit and rhetoric that Republicans want you to believe, and you all should know better by now and not believe the bullshit, even if it comes to you via the mainstream media, even the left side media. Don't listen to this shit. It's one of the reasons why I do the Rational Boomer podcast and the TikToks. I got tired of hearing bullshit from media. They're not your friends. They're not trying to inform you. They're trying to stir you up so that you watch more of their fucking programming. You can watch it, but you've got to watch it and take everything they say with a grain of salt and understand that whatever they're telling you, there's more to the story, and that's why you need to get all the facts. And I understand that a lot of people really don't have the time or motivation to do that, so I do it, and I tell you here, and I'm going to tell you this, don't worry about 2024, because unless something crazy happens, I don't see how there's any way that the Republicans can win. Hell, we just had it. I got a story later on. In Pennsylvania, there was a special election and the Democrats took a 1-seat majority in the House. Think about this. Republicans controlled the state of Pennsylvania, okay? The legislature is now Democrat. The senators are now Democrat. And that was done in like a year. If things are starting to flip in Pennsylvania, doesn't that seem to be a precursor for what's happening in this country? There was another state that flipped too to Democrat from Republican just yesterday. And I'm sorry, I don't know which one it is. I was looking at other things, but we've turned the tide here. It's going against the Republicans and for the Democrats. And it's not because the Democrats are geniuses or brilliant. It's because people are afraid that the Republicans will get in and continue with this abortion shit or the gun control shit or the grifting and the corruption or the stealing money from the middle class. So everything is going the way of the Democrat. The second email from Old Soul goes like this. Hey, Boomer. Marjorie Taylor Greene just released her budget amendments, more like budget demands, but okay. Number 1, stop any aid to Ukraine. Number 2, repealing the permanent indefinite appropriation for independent counsel, defund Jack Smith. Prohibits funds from being used for a new FBI building, defund the FBI. Prohibit funds for COVID-19 vaccine mandates. Prohibit funds for mask mandates on airplanes. Oh, you know, I'll tell you that after I get done with this. Prohibit funds for the mask mandates. I only have 3 words. What the fuck? I'm sure the first 3 demands came straight from Trump. McCarthy needs to get the non-MAGA Republicans together and team up with the Democrats. That's the only way to stop MAGA. Someone should tell McCarthy, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Work with Democrats and take away their power. It's that simple. Why is he allowing this nonsense? Unbelievable. Thanks, Boomer. Old Soul. Why is he doing it? Because he's a gutless piece of shit. He's afraid of MAGA. He's becoming less afraid of MAGA because he's now realizing that they don't have as much power as they led him to believe. But he fell into the same trap that Democrats fall into. You get somebody talking loud and getting into your face and making threats, and for whatever reason, people believe him. And Kevin McCarthy believed him. Now he's starting to get religion, as it were, and he understands that they don't have the power. Marjorie Taylor Greene making demands for budgets. Do you really think that's going to go anywhere? Do you think they can get 218 votes to back any one of those demands? No, it's a joke. Everything Marjorie Taylor Greene has ever done has been a joke. She's never accomplished anything. So by virtue of her writing this out on paper, that doesn't mean shit. Don't give her any credit. She has no integrity. She has no power. The Republican Party, for the most part, is against her. I mean, remember, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the normal Republicans, if there are any, don't like her, and MAGA doesn't like her. She's probably the least powerful person in the House of Representatives at this point. All right, I talked about this. Thank you, Old Soul. I appreciate it. And you got to come on the show. We had plans to come on the show, and I'm in Georgia now. Maybe we wait until I get back from Georgia, or if you want to do it tomorrow for the Thursday show, we can do that. Whatever you like. All right. A small group of rebellious House Republicans sank the annual funding bill for the Pentagon in the House Tuesday, underlining how difficult it will be to keep the entire government open and the lights on after September 30th. The defense bill is usually the easiest of the Republicans to vote in favor of, as it funds their top priority, national defense. But this year, it has become entangled in a wider, increasingly bitter intra-party fight in the House GOP overspending. Now, this is what I was saying earlier. This defense budget should have been the easiest thing in the world to pass. But the Republicans couldn't pull it together to fucking pass it. You're worried about 2024. The Republicans can't vote for a Speaker of the House. They can't come together on a defense bill. You really think they're going to win elections in 2024? Fuck no. The vote on a rule setting, they didn't even vote on the bill. This was just a rule setting the limits of floor debate on the defense bill, and that failed 212 to 214, with 5 Republicans voting against it. Remember, we need five Republicans if all 213 of the Democrats vote. While the vote was only procedural, the reality is it and the underlying defensive bill will probably not come back to the House floor until a deal is struck within the Republican conference. They got to agree on it in the Republican conference. We saw how well they agree when they were voting for Kevin McCarthy 15 fucking times. Now, Kevin McCarthy said, this is about funding our troops. This is not a place to play politics. And Kevin McCarthy is losing his shit here because his caucus, his Republican caucus, is in chaos right now. And it's his job to keep everything together, keep his caucus, the Republicans, unified. But the Republicans haven't been unified from the day they voted him in after 15 votes. There is no unification in the Republican Party. 5 members won with Democrats to block a bill that gives the largest pay raise to E1 through E6 military men and women, and I think that's important. McCarthy threatened the usually sacrosanct long weekend that the House members get when the House is in session, saying, we're going to keep voting on funding bills. The House members are scheduled to leave Washington, D.C. on Thursday, tomorrow night, and return next Tuesday night. Oh my God, what would you do if you had to work through the fucking weekend? Would you just had 2 months off for the fucking summer? You could work a weekend now and again. The $826.2 billion Pentagon funding bill takes up more than half of the pot of money that funds the day-to-day activities of the federal agencies and programs outside of the Social Security and Medicare. Its failure Tuesday shows the difficulty House Republicans are having in passing bills for the entire government, or even a temporary spending bill to keep the government's lights on past September 30th. Part of me thinks the Democrats wants the country to shut down just to further sink the Republicans. I hope that's not true, because people will suffer for that. And if the Democrats play politics that way, that's fucked up. And that's why I'm saying, if they can come to some agreement with Kevin McCarthy and say, look, I'll get you 213 or 212 votes, you get us 5 or 6 more, and we'll get this fucking thing done. That's really the only way this is going to get done, with the help of the Democrats. Now, Republican leaders had hoped they'd gotten a handle on the intra-party infighting on Sunday when they unveiled a compromise stopgap bill that would have cut funding by more than 8% for most agencies, and included border enforcement legislation Republicans have long wanted. But even that attempt at a compromise between hardline anti-spending party members and more moderate ones from less conservative congressional districts fell apart quickly. On Tuesday, McCarthy referred questions about that bill's progress to party whip Tom Emmer from fucking Minnesota. He's a piece of shit, who members had been told to talk to if they had problems with the bill. Well, the Republicans have nothing but fucking problems. It's funny, Mitch McConnell should be sticking his nose in this a little bit, and he's not. They basically said in the Senate that the Republicans in the House of Representatives is a shit show, and they've got all kinds of problems. And Kevin McCarthy is about to look very bad. If the government is shut down, it is the responsibility of the Republicans and Kevin McCarthy, and they're going to look foolish, and it's going to kill them in the 2024 election. This is why they have accomplished nothing in the 2.5 years that they've been in control. Actually, less a year and a half they've been in control, because they can't get together amongst themselves. They're so worried about fighting amongst themselves, they don't have fucking time to fight the Democrats or go against the Democrats. That's why I keep saying this is a very pivotal moment in our country, because these people that have obstructed and these people have caused all these problems, they're losing big. They're losing very big. And it's just not going to work. They're going to fail. And when they fail, it's going to put them in a bad situations. And then you throw on top of it, they want to do this impeachment thing on September 28th. That's a no-win situation too, because the only way they win is if they can tie Joe Biden to this whole thing, and they can't. They've said as much. They don't have the evidence. Now, I saved this last story for the last one on the podcast, mainly because, well, I think it's pretty important, and it just goes further to Donald Trump further sinking himself every time he opens his mouth. This time, it's not him opening his mouth, it's his former personal secretary, a lady by the name of Molly Michael. Now, Molly Michael brought some things to light to Jack Smith that make it really interesting. Didn't really give us more than we thought, maybe a little bit more. And what she said was that she quit her job with Donald Trump, like 2018 or 2019. Now, it was after he was out of office, but she was working with him from about 2018. And she was concerned about the way he was handling classified documents. She said that he would often write to-do lists for her to do for him, and they'd be on the back of classified documents that were marked classified. That's how little regard he had for classified documents. That's the disrespect that he showed, and that is pretty damning. But there was something else about what he did with Molly Michael that made it even more egregious. He basically treated Molly Michael the way a mob boss would subordinate when he demanded she say not a word about the boxes at Mar-a-Lago. See, the FBI told her that she was going to have to testify. And she said, what if they asked me about the boxes? And he said to her, you know nothing about the boxes, basically telling her to lie to the FBI, much like the lawyer did with Cassidy Hutchinson. So that bit of information is problematic for Donald Trump. He's basically coercing an employee to lie to the FBI. That's as bad as him lying to the FBI. Ty Cobb said, Ty Cobb is a former lawyer for Donald Trump. Molly Michael, former assistant to Donald Trump, tells investigators, quote, you don't know anything about the boxes. What do you hear when you hear those words? And of course, exactly what I said earlier, that is the voice of a mob boss telling an underling to keep his mouth shut or her mouth shut, otherwise there could be trouble. Cobb said, I hear Trump, really for the first time in terms of the way the evidence is rolled out, speaking in terms of a mob boss who is frequently, Ty Cobb has frequently flagged Trump's serious legal situation and has been subject to lawsuit threats from the former president. Giving a direct order to somebody that he probably should have no reason to believe, would lie for him, but expecting her to do so. It's not like Trump's body man, Walt Nada, who would do anything for him, and other people whose loyalty he had procured or never doubted. Molly, very highly regarded person, very loyal to the president, but there's a difference between loyalty and breaking the law, and that's not a line she was going to cross. So it really is Trump, directly ordering obstruction, Cobb added. And that will certainly be helpful to enhance the credibility of others who will testify about the destruction, like Yuscil Tavares with regards to the destruction of videos. See, Donald Trump basically blew one of his defenses out the door. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't have anything criminal in mind when I did it. The whole intent thing. Well, when he told her that she knows nothing, he clearly illustrated that he knew it was wrong and he was trying to hide it. So that defense is going to be out the fucking window for Donald Trump. It's almost pitiful to watch Donald Trump when he talks. He implicates himself every fucking time. He looks like a cornered animal. His face is puffy. His eyes are red. He's spewing. He's spitting. He just looks pitiful at this point. And as more information comes out, it's even worse for Donald Trump. And guess what? The information we have now, all pretty damning. That's probably not even the half of it. Jack Smith is going to bury Donald Trump. There's going to be no way out. There is no way out right now. And somebody like Molly Michael is going to be very damning against Donald Trump. See, what Donald Trump failed to realize is that there is a bunch of people who will do anything he says out of fear or because they wanted to be close to power or money or whatever it was. But there are some credible people out there like Cassidy Hutchinson or Molly Michael. They're smart enough to know that if they go along with this, they'll probably be implicated themselves. And they have decency in their soul. So they say, well, I can't do that because it's just wrong. Donald Trump doesn't care if it's wrong. He doesn't fucking care. But they did. And they stood up. And those two may end up being the heroes of this whole situation, whether it be January 6th with Cassidy Hutchinson or Molly Michael with regards to the classified documents. It's always some low-level person who just has some integrity and will stand up and take these motherfuckers down. Remember when Nixon, Alexander Butterfield, he was a lesser guy in the whole situation, but he brought Nixon down. And it's going to be like this. You can bet Cassidy Hutchinson and Molly Michael are going to be star witnesses in their respective cases. So I'm pretty excited, actually. I see what's going on here. I see no way out for Donald Trump or the Republicans. They can yell and scream and rant and rave and do all this shit. But you know what? It's all for naught. They're done. They're already cooked here. They're going to fight like hell to try to get away from it, but they can't. They're locked down. The evidence and the witnesses are there, and there is no way out. And the idea that they might be able to do something in 2024 just seems absolutely ridiculous to me. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Hope you, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day. And of course, we will be back tomorrow.